Good morning, everybody. We are going to wait just a minute or two for a few more attendees to get into the broadcast, and then we'll begin.
Jen, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Kelly.
Okay, great, thank you.
We already have a good number of registrants who are on right now, so I am going to begin the webinar, and as people want to join, they can just jump right in. So good morning. Welcome to the second in a series of OSD hosted webinars for municipal buyers. My name is Jennifer Forsey, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Patricia Burke, from the Local Government Enablement Team. We want to welcome you today to a discussion on our tradesperson's contracts. But before we begin the presentation, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to share with you. Today's session is being recorded, and a copy will be sent out within 24 hours. To keep the control panel open during the presentation, simply click View and uncheck Auto Hide Control Panel. And if you're experiencing any audio issues, click Audio in the control panel and select the phone call option to receive dial-in information. All participants are muted during today's presentation, and hand raising has been disabled as well. There will be a 15-minute question and answer period following our last presenter. Just click on the Questions tab in the control panel to enter your question, and we'll try to get to as many questions as time allows, and you can enter your question at any time during our presentation this morning. A copy of this presentation and a few additional resources, including the statewide contract reference sheet, are available in the GoToWebinar control panel under the Handouts tab. Simply click on any handout to access and save a copy. Next slide, please. Joining us today are Patricia Burke, Account Manager for the Local Government Enablement Team, Kelly Thompson-Clark, Contract Manager with the Strategic Sourcing Services Unit, myself, I'm Jennifer Forsey, Account Manager for the Local Government Team, and Paul Martin, Senior Training Specialist with our Training Unit. Next slide. In addition to learning about the array of trades categories we offer on our state contract, Kelly will review our extensive vetting process for contractors and our ongoing contract management process, as well as explain the contract thresholds and benefits. She'll also review some statement of work best practices. We'll then have two demonstrations from Paul Martin on how to easily find awarded vendors in your area and how to submit proposals and secure a vendor. Before you leave today, we will post a link to a brief survey in the chat. We have 5 short questions, and it should take less than a minute to respond, and we would sincerely appreciate your candid feedback. Now, here is Patricia Burke to open our presentation with our first polling question. Trish?
Good morning, thank you, Jen. Well, for our first poll question, we are asking you to estimate how many routine building maintenance projects you tackle each year. These may include window repair, HVAC projects, electrical work, painting, and the such. So our question is, would it be fewer than 10 projects, 10 to 25 projects, or more than 25 projects? Please select your response in the poll as it appears on your screen. Great. Thank you so much for your feedback. This is very insightful and helpful information for us. So at this point in the presentation, allow me to introduce to you Kelly Thompson-Clark, who will show you and explain to you the benefits of our 4 OSD trades contracts. Kelly?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Trish. As mentioned, I'm Kelly Thompson-Clark, and I have the privilege of managing the tradesperson contracts. I'd also like to thank you, our customers, for taking the time to join us today. I've had the pleasure of working with many of you and meeting many of you, and I certainly hope that after today, you'll allow OSD to assist you in your procurement needs. I'd like to give you an idea of what we will cover today. We thought this program was rather timely, mainly because I know this time of year, a lot of updates are done to school and university campuses, roads, rooftops, a lot of infrastructure work, jobs that generally involve the trades. Next slide, please. We thought this program, as well as being timely, as you can see there are, I'm sorry, Trish, my screen is blocked. For some reason, it's not showing up properly.
Susan, are you allowed to step in here?
I'm not sure what's causing the blocking. It might be something that you have.
It's okay, not a problem. I'm just fine, not a problem. So as you can see, we currently have 4 tradesperson contracts covering a multitude of categories. There are well over 300 vendors that specialize in a number of areas. Some even work on multiple contracts. Just to give you an idea, the following categories are utilized the most. Our TRD-01 contract is our largest, and electrical, HVAC, and plumbing are the 3 most widely used categories. You'll see we have an 11th category that we just added, solar array inspection. Last October, one of our FAC contracts expired, and since electrical sits on this contract, it made perfect sense to marry solar array in with TRD-01. On TRD-02, asphalt paving, excavation, and masonry are the most widely used. On TRD-03, elevators, as you can imagine, we have a lot of older buildings in the Massachusetts area, and elevators must be kept up to code and have annual maintenance. And our fire detection, fire suppression were 2 categories that are also widely used. A few years ago, we took fire services and separated it out into detection and suppression. We have many vendors that handle both, but also many vendors that specialize in either one or the other. In TRD-04, cleaning, restoration, and roofing are the most 2 widely used. Cleaning and restoration, if you were to have a flood or a fire, but also over the last year and a half with COVID, cleaning and restoration has also become paramount under the TRD-04 categories. Next slide, please. MRO contracts versus trades. We felt it was important to distinguish between these types of contracts, as our customers sometimes get confused as to which to use. The best way to distinguish between these types of contracts is to ask yourself, do I have the manpower for my job? If so, then MRO is the way to go. Those are the contracts for you. You need to purchase the materials or equipment, but you might have facilities or DPW people to install, maintain, and repair. A good example is if you need HVAC equipment. You have those people that can install it, but you need the equipment. However, if you need labor and or a company to provide you with everything for your HVAC project, units and skilled installers, then the trade contracts are the right fit. Next slide, please. Vendor due diligence. Our vetting or procurement process is quite arduous. Prior to awarding the vendor to a contract, they must follow a very specific RFR or request for response process. Part of that response process is to provide a variety of proof or meet specific requirements, and expectations include required Massachusetts licensing and certifications. Do they have the necessary Massachusetts licenses and accreditations for the work they perform? Proof of liability insurance. Do they have the necessary proof of coverage for their business? Verification letters from the Secretary of State. Is their business in good standing? Is their state reporting and records, are they up to date? Business experience and professional references. How many years have they been in business? What is their level of experience? Who can speak to their business experience and quality of work? And also capacity. Their ability to service the needed counties that we have in Massachusetts. Does their company have the capacity in manpower and experience to service our customers? Next slide, please. After they're awarded a contract, we keep track of KPIs or key performance indicators. Are the vendors responsive to your agency requests? Are they acknowledging RFQs in combis or requests for quotes? Are they accurate in their quoting? Are they following prevailing wage expectations? They also have reporting requirements for us. Are their quarterly sales reports, are those being meeting expectations? Are they being followed? Are the information in the reports complete, concise, and correct? Vendor performance is also measured and used to evaluate renewals and contract effectiveness as we move forward through the process. Next slide, please. Contract thresholds. This seems to be one of the most important discussions I have with our customers on a daily basis. It's very important, first of all, for you to have and maintain your own budget for a number of reasons on your end on keeping track of what you're spending and where you're spending it. But labor versus materials are viewed differently on our contracts. Labor thresholds are limited to $50,000 per engagement. Materials and equipment are unlimited. The two areas to focus on in regard to labor costs is first, do you expect labor to be under $10,000? If so, you can go direct to an awarded vendor and invite them to quote and award the work. If you expect labor to be $10,000 and a penny to $50,000, then you must put out an RFQ or a request for quotes. You must get 3 responses, 2 of which must be actual priced quotes. One can also be a no thank you, we choose not to bid from the vendor, which counts as a response. A couple of examples are recently I had a municipality contact me and they had a $112,000 project. They didn't think they could use the trade contracts because it exceeded $50,000. I had a lengthy discussion with them and explained the difference. After which it turns out the labor was $15,000 and the rest of the materials, because it was an HVAC project, that ate up the rest of the $112,000. Another example is I've had a municipality, actually several in fact, that had an annual maintenance that needed to be performed in a number of areas. They wanted to set up a maintenance contract with the vendor to service their various needs. They were able to do that through the trades contracts as the labor for the year was going to be $50,000 or under. They put out an RFQ through combis, and after getting 3 responses was able to award to a vendor for the year. It was a win-win situation for everyone involved. And as a point of reference, please remember, each contract has a related contract user guide. Each guide is available on the OSD page within mass.gov. If you cannot locate a guide, you are welcome to contact me and I can certainly provide it for you. I always suggest you check out the contract user guide as a resource and a tool. Very often the user guides can answer your questions. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits and contract protections that we offer by going through OSD instead of doing your own procurement process is, as I mentioned before, the contractors are vetted very heavily. And again, this saves you time and money and not having to go through your own arduous process. Our contractors are responsible for obtaining and submitting and paying for any required permits or licensing that's necessary for said job. Some of the protections include that, again, they have to have the licensing and certifications, OSHA certifications for their work. And also they need to stipulate prior to starting on contract, what areas of Massachusetts, what counties or regions can they service? We need to make sure that if you have a job, the appropriate and vendors that are available to service your area are ready for that contract. And finally, probably one of the most important, we prevent any additional costs. There are restrictions for any additional costs being added to your invoices, meaning they cannot charge you for commuting expenses, fuel surcharges, lodging. No incidental expenses are allowed to be charged to you. Next slide, please. Statement of work best practices. So many of you probably know how to put together a statement of work or a program of work, but some things that I want you to please keep in mind. Please make sure that you have the exact job site or location listed on your statement of work. For instance, the Department of Corrections may call me from the Boston office, but they're going to be needing vendors or contractors to service Bridgewater. So please make sure that Bridgewater would be on their scope of work so that we make sure anybody that's servicing Norfolk County or in those areas is going to be answering or responding to that request. Specific scope or requirements, job duties, or objectives, Please make sure that there are any special needs or necessary points of information that they are included. Say, for instance, somebody has to park away from a job site and they have to take a shuttle in. They need to be at the job site by 6 a.m. in order to get the shuttle to come in, or can they drop off their materials and then park off site? Those are very important pieces of information. Are site tours going to be offered or necessary? Is it a confined space? Is it a roof? Is it an HVAC job where a site tour is necessary in order for them to provide you with an accurate quote? During the pandemic, I started a program for virtual tours because many of our tradespeople were considered necessary personnel, but they weren't allowed on a job site unless they were awarded the job. And a timeline if that's needed. If you have a job that needs to start on October 1st, please don't start the process a week before you would like the job to start. I suggest 2-week lead time before quotes are due so that you can make sure that you can review the quotes, and if tours are being included, that does not include the 2-week timeline. So again, if October 1st is your start date, you might want to start now because you need to make sure that you can provide adequate tours, receiving your quotes, and then giving you an opportunity to review before you award for that October 1st start time. And finally, it is incumbent upon our buyers or customers and the vendors to check with the Department of Labor about prevailing wage rates. You need to be aware of what your prevailing wage rate is for that job, primarily because wage rates are different depending on which county in which the work is being performed, as well as the type of work that's being performed. So if a job is going to be $200 on Nantucket, $100 in Boston, but $80 in Chicopee, you need to know that when they're receiving their quotes. Also, you need to be aware of that so that you know what their markup is as well on prevailing wage based on the information that you were given. Next slide, please. And finally, diverse and small business purchasing opportunities. We're very fortunate to have a lot of our tradesperson vendors that are certified as a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business, or a Massachusetts-based small business. We have 63 total contractors, and some of our vendors even qualify in a variety of those different areas. The trades contracts offer an opportunity for you to engage with small and diverse businesses. Now, we can't always guarantee that if you have somebody you've worked with through your procurement process and they'd like to get on a state contract, we can't always guarantee that they can get on right away. But if they do qualify or they think that they could become certified in any of these areas, we suggest that they check with the SDO office so that they can be certified and get that done on a timely basis so that when they can get on a contract, they're ready to go and they've got that certification added to their file. That's it for me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, and I hope you've gained some insight into the wonderful world of trade contracts. Thank you again. I look forward to working with you, and I hope OSD can assist you in maintaining a productive and successful agency. I'll hand it back to Trish. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Well, before you hear from our training team, we have one more poll question we'd like you to respond to. So here it is. How much time on average does it take your organization to conduct a full procurement? Now, to provide some context here, this should include time allowed for developing the RFP, posting the advertising solicitation, receiving and evaluating bid responses, and awarding the contract. Would you say that process takes less than 30 days, 30 to 90 days, or more than 90 days? If you would, please select your response in the poll as it appears on your screen. Thank you. Well, we appreciate your feedback. And now to demonstrate how to use the Trades Index to find vendors and how to efficiently solicit them for your upcoming projects, please welcome Paul Martin from our training unit. Paul?
Thanks, Trish. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be performing a brief demonstration of the Tradesperson's Contract Index, and then I'm going to go ahead and quickly demonstrate how to post a solicitation in Combis. So first, the index. Presently, I'm on the Combis landing page, and I'm going to scroll down to the hyperlink for the Tradesperson's Contract Index. Once this opens up, it's going to bring me to an Excel file. I hope you can all see this. And when the file displays, there is a yellow stripe at the top of the screen with a button that says Enable Editing. So I'm going to click that. And then another yellow stripe is going to appear. And it says Enable Content. I'm going to click that, and that will activate this Excel file for me. So the scenario I'm going to follow through this is going to be, I am a municipality located in Middlesex County, and I am looking for an electrician. So let's go ahead and do that. If I click the down arrow next to the select county, I'm going to scroll down and find Middlesex County, which is right here. I'm going to highlight that. And then I can click on the select trade category underneath and do the same thing with the down arrow and select electrician. When I do that, the electricians who have been awarded on TRD01 as electricians will display here, and there's various columns, including contact information, prompt pay, markups, and so on. So that's where you would find, that might be your first step after having read the contract user guide. And if you want to refresh your memory about the things that Kelly just talked about, there is a link at the top that'll take you back to the TRD01 contract user guide. So that's pretty much how you would get to it and find information on the Tradesperson's Contract Index. What I'd like to do next is to actually post a bid solicitation. So I'm going to go ahead and do that using the same scenario. I am sitting right now on my Combis homepage, and I'm going to initiate a requisition. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to click the blue and white plus sign, which is the Add Documents icon next to the Combis logo at the top left. And I'm going to choose the first selection from the drop-down menu, which is Requisition. When the screen redisplays, it's going to bring me to the new requisition screen, and my cursor is blinking in the field at the top right that says short description. So I'm going to enter something in here, and this is a searchable field. So I'm going to put something in here that will allow me to find it later on and differentiate this transaction from all other transactions that I have put into the Combis system. The second field is on the left-hand side. It is in the requisition type field. There is a down arrow, and I'm going to select the very last selection, which is release. And the screen's going to blink for a minute, and what Combis is doing is it's setting up all the succeeding screens to allow you to get to where you need to go. I'm going to just cross over to the right-hand side. There is a little box called Solicitation Enabled, and when I check that, I'm pretty much done on this screen. There is one more field that you may be interested in, and that's near the lower left. It is the alternate ID field. If you have numbers that are important to you, such as a requisition number or a purchase order number or an encumbrance number, you can put that information here in the alternate ID field. This is also a searchable field, so this may help you find your transaction later on as well. And it will print on the invoice, so that might be a field that is important for you to use. I'm going to click the Save and Continue button at the bottom. And when I do, I can now start working the additional tabs from left to right. The second tab at the top is the Items tab. So I'm going to click on that. There is a single button at the bottom called Search Items. I'm going to click on that. And when the screen redisplays, there's going to be in boldface on the left-hand side the words Advanced Search. Right next to that is a little plus sign icon. If I click on that, it's going to open up the search page for me. I'm going to search by two criteria. First, in the description field, I'm going to put the alphanumeric designation of the contract, which in this case is TRD01. And then in the item description field, I'm going to put in electrician. I'm going to go to the bottom of this and click the Find It button on the left-hand side. And while Combis is searching, the screen will turn gray, and then when it finds results, it'll turn white again. I'm going to scroll down to these search results, and I'm going to look for the row that has Middlesex County and the word conversion vendor in it. And that's located right here. So I'm going to click on the checkbox in that row, and it's asking me for a quantity, and I must put something in. I'm ordering a service, so as a placeholder, I'm just going to put in the number 1. So I'm pretty much done on this screen. I'm going to go to the bottom and click on the Add to Rec and Exit button. And when Combis redisplays, I'm going to get a validation message at the top. It's looking for me to put in a price, and of course I don't have it yet because I'm putting this out for quotes. So to rectify that, in the middle of the screen, you can see this hyperlink that says Enter Info. If I click on that, it will bring up a screen that will show me the catalog price and unit cost box. And again, as a placeholder, I can just put in the number 1 for $1. And then click Save and Exit at the bottom. And it has taken what I have entered and has done away with the validation error message. The next tab is the Vendors tab. If I click on it, suddenly I get another error message telling me that I haven't chosen a vendor yet. So to rectify that problem, I'm going to go back to the Items tab. And underneath the Items tab in the sub-tab row is a tab called Vendors. So I'm going to click on this Vendors sub-tab. And once again, in the center of the screen is a blue hyperlink called Select Vendor. And this is how you would be able to do that. I'm going to click on Select Vendor. I'm going to expand my screen. Now, it doesn't matter which vendor you select. It doesn't mean that you're going to be dealing with this vendor by any means. It's just choosing one will allow you to activate all of them. So I'm going to click on the first one, and I'm going to click the Select button at the bottom, and that has caused the validation error message to go away. Now I can skip over vendors and go to the Distributors tab. And the Distributors tab, when it displays, is going to show me that all of the vendors have been selected by checking the boxes on the right-hand side. So that's what selecting that one vendor did for us. Now, if you wanted to select some of these vendors, you could uncheck those boxes. If you are interested in getting as many quotes as you want, you can leave them all checked in whatever fashion you want to do. Remember that Kelly said that you must solicit at least 3 and get 2 written responses. As a best practice, I'm just going to send it out to all of them. So I'm going to leave them all checked for now. And I'm going to click Save and Continue at the bottom. And it's showing me now, these are all of the vendors that I'm sending my bid solicitation to. I'm not going to go through all of the tabs on here for purposes of saving time, but the next important one would be the Attachments tab, because this is where I would like to attach my solicitation that I have prepared in advance, and I've saved it somewhere on my computer. It could be a documents file, it could be on my desktop, or a flash drive, or a shared file. So in order to attach something to this order, it can be done in the same fashion as attaching something to an email. So I'm clicking on the attachments, and there is a button called Add File, and that's what I want to do. On the left-hand side will be a button. It will say either browse if you're using Firefox, or it may say choose file if you're using Chrome or Edge or some other browser. It doesn't really matter what the button says. They both have the same functionality. So I'm going to click on browse, and I'm going to look for the solicitation document that I've saved. I happen to have saved it on my desktop. Here it is right here. So I'm going to highlight it and click the open button. And what it does is it attaches it to my transaction. So I'll just go to the bottom, click save and exit. And as you can see, it has locked it into my transaction. I'm pretty much done with the requisition phase. So now I can go to the summary tab. When I click on the summary tab, I can take a quick look and make sure that everything is the way that I want it. If I am submitting it to someone else for approval, then when I click this submit for approval button at the bottom, it will go through that approval path. And when the last approver has approved it, I'm going to get an email back from Combis letting me know that. If you are a person who approves your own, then you're going to replicate what I'm doing here, which is to submit for approval at the bottom. I can click the automatic approval button on the left-hand side and click save and continue. When I do that, the status at the top right of the screen is going to change from in progress to ready for purchasing. And that really takes care of the requisition phase. Now, from this screen, whether I'm logging back in after receiving final approval, or if I have just approved it myself and I want to continue, from this very same summary screen, I can scroll to the bottom, and there is a button that says convert to bid. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to get a pop-up screen that's asking me if I'm okay as to whether or not I want to do this, and my response will be okay. And that's going to take me to a new set of screens. Combis is going to think about it for a few minutes, and then in that yellow box at the top, it's going to issue me an auto-generated bid number. So now I'm going to go into bid mode by clicking on that bid number hyperlink. And when it opens up, it's going to open up to the summary page. It's going to give me a validation error at the top. So I'm going to quickly repeat the process that I did for the requisition by working the tabs from left to right. So starting with the general tab, I need to put in the available date. The available date is found about halfway down on the left-hand side. The available date is the date that you want to establish the beginning of the bidding period for your vendors. It will be the time that the vendors will be able to view and will be contacted by the Combis system, letting them know that your solicitation is in there. The way to activate this is to click the calendar icon to the right of the field. And then you can choose on here the date, the month, the year, and actually by using these slide bars, set the time that you would like to make this solicitation visible. In my case, I'm in a little bit of a hurry today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select now and then select the done button. And as soon as I'm done with this transaction and I send it, it will be viewable and it can be acted upon by my vendors. Kelly recommended at least 2 weeks for the bidding period to occur, and the end of the bidding period, the time when you will stop accepting all bids and start to review them, is reflected in the bid opening date. So think of this as the date that you start opening the bids to review them. I'm going to set this at least 2 weeks from today. I'll do exactly 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today is going to be August the 12th. And let's say by using the slide bar, I want to open these at high noon. So I'm going to move this to 12 p.m. and click the done button, and it puts that time in there. So I've set the available date. I've set the bid opening date. I'm going to go to the bottom and click on the save and continue button. The error message goes away and it locks in the things that I have just entered on this screen. Okay, I'm now going to skip over a bunch of these tabs. You can see that the attachments tab has been brought over during the bid stage, so your solicitation is still in there. And I'm going to move to the bidders tab, and I open up the bidders tab, and there's a little button on the left-hand side that says restricted bid. I'm going to change that to unrestricted. and go to the bottom of the page and click Save and Continue. And I'm going to move on to another tab that is fairly important, which is the Q&A tab. The Q&A tab will allow your vendors to ask you questions and will allow you to answer those questions, and all of it is done electronically. So there are two checkboxes on the left. The first is to allow the vendor to submit questions, and the second is to have the Combi system send you notification when the vendor is submitting a question. Now, sometimes this is done manually, and you end up answering the same questions over and over and over again. Here in Combis, if you activate this, then the vendors will have been trained to open up the Q&A tab and see if the question's already been asked and answered. So this is a feature that may be a time saver for you. I'm going to save and continue at the bottom, and I'm pretty much done now with the bid process. So I'm going to go to the Summary tab, and I'm going to repeat what I did before. Scrolling to the bottom, everything looks okay. I'm going to click the Submit for Approval button. I'm going to force it through the approval process by clicking Automatic Approval and the Save and Continue button. And at the top right, the status will change from In Progress to Ready to Send. Now, at this point, it actually has not been revealed to the vendors. There is one more step to do that. So if you are someone who is using an approval path and you've just received the email letting you know that it's okay to send it, then you would log back in and come to this transaction. If you are actually doing it yourself, then once again, you only have to scroll to the bottom. And there is a button on the line above the other three buttons called Send Bid, and it tells you what it's going to do. If you click that button, it's going to change the bid status to Send, and Combis will notify the vendors that this is now available for them to view and to quote against. So I'm going to click on the Send Bid button, and when the screen redisplays, it's going to show me all of the vendors that I have selected for that email notification to go to. And I'm simply going to click OK. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the process. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Lydia Foster, and I'm a member of the OSD Marketing, Communications, and Events team. At this time, we encourage you to submit your questions for the Q&A portion. From the control panel, simply enter your questions into the questions panel and then click send. We have Kelly here to answer trades questions. Paul is, of course, our Combis and OSD training expert. And then, of course, the local government enablement team is here as well. So as we wait for questions to come in, if you liked what you just saw from Paul Martin, the OSD training team has lots of great free resources, including live webinars. You can spend a little bit more time with Paul. And the schedule is online, and it's also linked on the Combis homepage. Let's see some questions. So Kelly, we have some trades questions coming in.
Excellent.
All right, are you ready?
I am, Alex.
Okay. This one is there a temporary general building maintenance worker service available to supplement maintenance crews, such as in the case of vacations or extreme workloads?
Yes, and actually I mentioned this in my examples. We have quite a few municipalities and or agencies that at times need maintenance people to take on different projects. And as you mentioned, vacation, things like that. I'm more than willing to have a conversation with them prior to them putting out their request for quotes, but many of our vendors can certainly help them, obviously if the vendors are available to do the work. But I usually suggest having a conversation with my customers first about that, just to find out what kind of scope they're talking about and how far in advance they have the schedules, like if it's vacation fill-in, things like that, how far in advance they would have the schedule so that we can try to make this a timely process for them.
Great, thank you. I have a few more trades questions, so if you'll stay on.
I'm popular today, yay!
Yeah. Today's the day, most popular girl in school.
Oh yeah, oh boy.
This is a clarification question, and I know it's been mentioned a few times, but I think it's worth clarifying. This question is, I thought it was reach out to at least 3 vendors and get a minimum of 2 quotes back. Is that correct?
Yes, so you'll notice that oftentimes we use the word responses and quotes, and sometimes that can be a little confusing. So it's important that you need to reach out to, and quite honestly, I do not suggest that you just ask for 3 quotes from 3 vendors. It's important to know which vendors, again, service the county or the area in which the work is going to be performed. And I usually suggest that you reach out to as many vendors as possible in order to get the best chance for quotes returned. So we say in order to get 3 responses, meaning you've heard from 3 vendors, and out of those 3 responses, 2 must be actual written quotes, and 1 that counts as a response could be a no thank you, I choose not to bid, for whatever reason.
Thank you. And one more for now. Sharon has a trash compactor replacement project. Which trade contract would be best for this?
Oh, Sharon, you and your trash compacting, my goodness. I think I would probably want to have a conversation with the agency about that. Are we looking at something that would fall under TRD 01 for general contracting? Is there septic involved with that as well? It might fall into a couple of areas. So again, I think sometimes it's best to have a conversation with me so they can gain some clarification around, which direction is best for them to move.
Great, thank you. I'm not sure if this one is for Kelly or Paul, so be at the ready, Paul. This question is, can you enter a website link for the solicitation?
Are you referring to the agency wants to enter a link so that they can access the solicitation? Obviously, Lydia, you're reading the question right there. So I think that probably, again, if they're still on and they can expand on that, would be great. If they are going through combines, it's important for them to make sure that this is one reason why we like them to work directly in combines. If they're looking to add the MBPO link or add a link to, and Paul, please correct me if I'm wrong, if they're looking to add a link in their request for quotes, I guess that depends if they were sending out something by email, but if they're already in combines, then I don't think they'd be looking to add a link because they're already in combines. Paul, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the question is either, but I mean, if a hyperlink is put into the solicitation, if that's what they're asking, then it should still activate because the Word document is simply being attached to the transaction in combines.
Exactly.
Great. Okay. In this question says, in Paul's talk, he showed checking the box for all contractors. Can you restrict that to just your county or neighboring counties?
Yeah, if you have chosen in your search criteria TRD1 and electrician, then yes, by having viewed the tradesperson's contract index in advance, you would know which ones will service Middlesex County. So what I did not do is take the time to do all of that by counting each one and then eliminating the others. But yes, you would do that due diligence after you have looked at the tradesperson's contract index. You could keep a record, you could certainly print it out, a record of all the ones that service your county. And then when the list of all the vendors comes up, you can uncheck the ones that aren't on that list that will service Middlesex County and send it to all the rest, or a selection sample of the rest.
And Lydia, I'd also like to add that in each vendor file, there's what is called a bidder response form within combines. So let's say, for instance, they're going to look for plumbers and they're going into the contract that has plumbing and they see just lists of vendors there and they see Joe's Plumbing, for instance. And so they click on Joe's Plumbing. When they look at Joe's Plumbing file, not only would it have a list of an RFR and so on, but there also would be a bidder response form. And that's something that all of the awarded vendors had to fill out prior to going on contract. And that includes general business information, what their markup is over prevailing wage, what their markup is on materials, as well as a flat dollar amount for emergency, holiday, or non-business hours. And then they also have to select which counties or areas of Massachusetts they're choosing to service. So that's also listed there as well.
Lydia, this is Jennifer. I just would like to add one more caveat to this. Paul did an excellent demonstration, thank you, Paul, of the Combis e-procurement system. I just want to reiterate that municipalities or entities are not required to use Combis to solicit bids and responses. You can actually use Combis to find your vendors, which we obviously would like you to do and encourage you to do. But once you find your vendors and that contact information as a municipality, you don't have to go through Combis. You can simply send an email with your documents and but what we do recommend and require is that you always want to cite what contract you are utilizing. So if it's TRD01 in your email to the vendors that you are soliciting quotes for, you always want to let them know what state contract you are looking at, and then you can attach your documents and websites or whatever you want to your email. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, Kelly, would this contract work for emergency and on-call plumbing services?
Yes, as I just mentioned on the bidder response form, one of the things that vendors must do is contractors must put a flat dollar amount in that would be a flat dollar amount that they would choose for emergencies, holiday, or non-business hours, which would be 5:01 p.m. to 6:59 a.m. And so if there is something when it's an emergency or a situation like that, they certainly can be utilized for that, and all of their contact information is listed there.
Thank you. And if a vendor submits their bid after the due time, do they get a message that their bid will not be accepted? Will the late bid come through for me to see, or will I receive an email?
As Paul pointed out, the times that, when you timestamp it, when you're entering it, and then the time that it ends, then if they do not meet that time, that threshold, that time threshold, then it will not go through. Paul, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct. In fact, after the time has elapsed, the vendor won't even be able to see the solicitation in the open bid section anymore. So the system will not allow them to create a quote.
Correct.
Now, are trades contracts available to Massachusetts nonprofit organizations?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So we have a full list of eligible agencies, organizations, and municipalities and so on that can use our trade contracts, and nonprofits definitely are included in that. In fact, I have quite a few nonprofits and not-for-profits that I work with very closely, whether they're associated with an actual agency or they provide services to an agency.
Yeah. This is a question for Paul. If the vendor responds to the quote before the due date, are we able to review it, or do we have to wait until after the deadline?
It depends on how the solicitation is set up. There is a way to set it up so that you can view in advance. And the other way is that you can't view it in advance. That is all outlined in the job aids. If you go to the Combis landing page, as Lydia mentioned earlier, the job aid is found in the bids section. It is called How to Request Quotes from Vendors on Statewide Contracts. And all of that information is included in that job aid as to how to set up the solicitation so that you can either see in advance or not see.
Okay, thank you. This question is, why would I use requisition entry versus bid solicitation to advertise a project?
Well, if you are doing a bid solicitation on a statewide contract, you will need to set it up as a solicitation enabled. And the way to do that is by using a requisition and converting it to a bid.
Thank you. This one says, does the quote have to be broken down by labor and supplies?
The quote from the contractor to the customer or the buyer agency, we would prefer, and it should be broken down because you're dealing with prevailing wage, and you might have, vendors might have a, let's say for instance, a 35% markup over prevailing wage, but a 20% markup on materials. So they definitely should have it broken down. In fact, I've had multiple conversations with customers recently about them receiving quotes that didn't have it broken down, and we needed to go back because they have a budget and they need to make sure that they're staying within their budget as well as our thresholds of 50,000 for labor.
Thanks. So we are approaching our 11 o'clock deadline, but I will go through just a few more questions. And if we don't get to anyone's questions, we'll give you the contact information for all of our panelists today, and you can absolutely follow up and touch base. And people have also asked how they'll get recordings of this. We will be sending that out in the coming days as well to your email. So this question says, once a contract has been awarded, may we use our local contract terms and conditions to the contract?
I'm sorry, Lydia, can you repeat that again?
Sure. Once a contract has been awarded, may we use our local contract terms and conditions on the contract?
If they're utilizing a TRD contract, there are terms and conditions that are in place upon the signature of the vendor as well as on our end to fully execute the contract. We do have quite a few of our municipalities, however, that do request a copy of our contract, and they utilize it when they're putting together their scope of work or their own contract, that sometimes they will ask a vendor to sign so that there's that kind of solid agreement that's accompanying the quote.
Okay. And our last question for today will be, I believe also for Kelly.
Of course, popular girl.
Exactly. What needs to be done if the project cost ends up going over 50K during the project?
Okay, so this does happen occasionally. And just like any project that you even might do at home, sometimes addendums have to be made. So the important thing is that an original, that's why an original quote is so important. And let's say, for instance, a quote comes back and the labor is at $48,000. Then they need to take a look at the differences on the quote and why, is it necessarily going to be that close? There will be times as well where they've gotten in on the job and they've gotten in there and maybe they've opened up a wall and found more pipes that need to be worked on or something like that. And that will require addendums. So then from there, they obviously need to have a discussion with the agency, the buyer, the customer, and I'm oftentimes brought in to have a discussion with them as well and make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, make sure we're following the constraints within the contract, but then still making sure that they get their needs met. So that's where sourcing manager comes in as well, so that I can make sure that we're aware of what the next steps are and how many addendums are needed or necessary as we move forward.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, with that, we will close out our question and answer. Can I get the next slide, Susan? Okay, so we have posted a link to a brief survey in the chat. It should only take 1 minute to complete our short 5-question survey. Just take a moment, send us your feedback about today's presentation. We'll also be sending it out after the presentation. And we appreciate your ideas for future Spotlight webinars. Any topic, please let us know. And now I will send it back over to the local government enablement team to wrap things up. Thanks, everyone.
Lydia, thank you so much for guiding us through the Q&A, and panelists for your great responses, attendees for the amazing questions. So thank you. On behalf of the local government enablement team, I would like to reiterate once more that we are a team that is committed to supporting you. So if you have any additional questions moving forward, please don't hesitate but to reach out to us. We're committed to working with each and every municipal organization, housing authority, eligible entities throughout the state, whether we are answering your contract procurement questions or setting up a custom training class for you to become more proficient in your procurements and the use of Combi's system. Next slide. So in this way, we are social, of course. So we are looking for your feedback and for you to stay connected with us. We do have a fully staffed OSD help desk available during normal business hours to support your efforts as well. Next slide. So in closing, on behalf of OSD and the local government enablement team, I want to thank this group for attending today. I hope you enjoyed the trades presentation and found it to be of high value to you in your roles in your communities. And we do look forward to working with you future. Thank you.